The sky over Ouagadougou burned gold as dusk fell across the city. President Ibrahim Traoré stood alone on the presidential balcony, eyes fixed on the horizon where dust clouds mixed with fading sunlight. Beneath his feet lay the weight of history. In his hand, a brown envelope, simple, clean, sealed with wax. Inside it, a contract. Outside it, a nation. No press conferences, no generals. Just one man, caught in a moment that could define his people's destiny. The silence was broken by a single sentence earlier that day. This agreement will make Burkina Faso the water capital of Africa. But the cost of that sentence would almost be their soul. Just a week ago, no one was talking about the Tamba corridor. It was a forgotten region, mostly desert, scattered with dry riverbeds, old myths, and a few poor nomadic settlements. But beneath its scorched surface lay the Tamba underground aquifer, an untouched freshwater reservoir stretching deep below the ground. Few even believed it existed. Fewer had ever mapped it. And somewhere along its slopes grew a resilient green herb called gadosi, known only to local healers. Most of the world didn't know what it could do, but foreign labs did. Private companies did. And so did the mysterious delegation that arrived last Tuesday. They came dressed in elegance white. Suits, black sunglasses, smooth smiles. The Iridian Group, a private investment consortium from the Gulf, backed by silent partners in Europe and Asia. They offered Burkina Faso $4.2 billion. Infrastructure, schools, medical research grants, a beautiful slideshow presentation. Applause followed. Ministers clapped. Ambassadors smiled. And a few whispered that Ibrahim had finally turned pragmatic. They called it progress. But in the final pages of the contract, buried in obscure legal terms, was a different story. A 99-year exclusive lease over the entire Tamba region. Full control over the gadosi plant and unrestricted ownership of the underground water. Not partnership-possession. President Ibrahim was quiet in the meeting. He didn't object. He didn't cheer. He just watched. Every gesture, every pause, every sideways glance. And when he returned to his office, he said just one thing to his advisor. Find me Mariam Ouattara. Mariam was not a politician. She wasn't even 30. A quiet, focused botanist who had spent 10 years studying indigenous plants across Burkina Faso's forests and drylands. She had once slept under tents, eaten with her hands in remote villages, and heard whispers from old women about the healing power of gadosi. She believed it could cure advanced stages of malaria and certain liver diseases, but lacked funding to research it further. When she saw the contract, her hands shook. This isn't just a business deal, she told Ibrahim. It's a burial. A burial of knowledge, of water, of sovereignty. If we sign this, we won't own our future anymore. He nodded, saying nothing, as if he already knew. The next day, pressure mounted. The Iridian delegates increased their offer, an extra $600 million. Then came the diplomatic calls from friendly governments. Then foreign journalists asking leading questions. Then international banks warning of investment risk if the deal failed. Even some within his cabinet said, Mr. President, we can't afford to walk away from this. But Ibrahim walked anyway, and he walked into something darker. Rumors spread of internal betrayal. One minister resigned without explanation. Anonymous letters warned of plots. One night, Ibrahim's convoy was nearly ambushed outside Ouagadougou. A bribe worth $15 million was discreetly offered in a foreign account. Another attempt to hack government servers was traced back to a port city in West Africa. But Ibrahim stayed silent. He stopped answering calls. He canceled foreign visits. And then, without warning, he called for a national address. That evening, the country held its breath. Dressed in his olive green uniform, hands resting on the podium. He stared into the camera with fire behind his eyes. My people, they have come not with chains, but with contracts. They do not use weapons, but clauses. They do not raise armies, but offer investments. And in return, they ask for the very roots of our survival. Our water, our land, our medicine. They think we will say yes, because we are poor. But we are not poor, we are robbed. And today, we choose to be robbed no more. The room behind him was filled with gasps. Across Africa, young leaders rewatched the clip. Western media called it anti-development rhetoric. But within Burkina Faso, people cheered. Women cried. Farmers held their hands to the sky. Students posted his words with hashtags like hashtag water is freedom and hashtag GADOHSI is ours. Days later, the Iridian group withdrew its offer and released a carefully worded statement blaming irreconcilable political differences. But the damage had been done. Not to Ibrahim, but to the illusion that Africa could still be bought. Behind the scenes, more pressure came. An embargo threat. Funding for solar projects paused. A letter from a neighboring president warning Ibrahim to stay quiet or risk isolation. Ibrahim didn't flinch. Instead, he opened up the Tamba region for national research and development, invited young Burkina scientists to study the aquifer and gadosi herb, and vowed, we will develop it ourselves. Even if it takes us 10 years. Even if we do it stone by stone. He made one more visit. Quiet, no media, no guards. Just him and Mariam walking into a dusty village at the edge of the Tama range. They sat with elders. They knelt at a spring. He placed his hand on the earth and said softly, let this land never be sold again, not by paper, not by fear, not by greed. This is not just soil. This is memory. This is medicine. This is Burkina. The world may forget headlines, but they would not forget this decision, because this was not a fight for gold or oil. This was a fight for life. And in choosing freedom over fortune, Ibrahim Traoré didn't just protect a plant or a patch of land. He redefined what it means to be a free nation.